Wonderful. I'd love to start by congratulating you on your nomination.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And God's Country's done super well, and gone to Sundance. And there's been a lot of talk around it, which is super exciting. So I'd love to just dive into, what drew you to this project. And were you familiar with the short story, or, how did you end up getting brought onto this?
Yeah, so I would have done this film without having read a script, to be honest. It's more the collaborator, the director. He and I went to the American Film Institute together, and we had success there with our thesis film, our short film at AFI, which won the Student Academy Award that year. And the short story, he had sent me, a year or two maybe after we graduated. And I have a farm up in Montana. Actually, I didn't have it yet at that point, but my brother lived there.
Okay.
And I read this short film, which was short story that was written by an author named James Lee Burke, who's more known for these David Robichaud novels, these they're like New York Times bestseller series of like detective books, basically. And I read this short film. Sorry, I keep saying film. I read the short story, and it really reminded me, like the details of it reminded me of this canyon that my brother lived in up there.
Okay.
And I was like, this sounds like, like the main character in the short is like my brother's neighbor,
Wow.
And so that kind of turned us into shooting the short film, which was called the short was called Winter Light, the short film and the short story.
For sure. Yeah.
Which in the end, was never, in the beginning was never going to be a feature. There wasn't intent to do that with this material, and obviously that ended up not being the case. And I think Julie and Shay, the writer, started writing it maybe 3 years later after that, or something like that. And it's a very similar story, it's a similar plot, but it's a very different story, I would say, just by how they changed the main character. So yeah, I got involved in the short and the feature just from a long line of collaboration with Julian Higgins, the director.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you went to AFI together, and you've been collaborating together ever since. That's awesome.
Yeah. I call it an ace in my pocket for a lot of other career choices. Not that I've made unsatisfactory or career choices that I'm unhappy about, but I don't mean it like that. I just mean that the things that I wanted to do, I knew I would always do with him. And there's an editor too, who's a very important part of that equation also, who went to school with us as well, named Justin LaForge. So the three of us, it's a pretty amazing team, to be honest. And it's a great situation to work under, and just very inspirational and not ego laden, and very much a place to express and be heard, and the best idea makes it to the front of the line always.
So. Yeah, it's always great to hear about those collaborations that begin in film school and actually, grow as everyone continues on in the industry. That's always a really nice thing to hear.
Yeah. I feel very lucky about it, to be honest, that ended up happening, because I do get asked, like, should I go to the American Film Institute, is a question that people reach out to me often about. And for me, the answer is quite simple. It has nothing to, as much as I did learn with other things there, I would always pay for this collaboration. Ultimately, it's what I paid for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way about going to USC. It's the people that I met there that made it worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you'd been with this material in different forms for quite a while, going from the short film to then making it into a feature. Were there any particular challenges that came out of that? Like, having dealt with, obviously the story changed a bit, but like dealing with a similar story and taking it into a different form. Yeah. What was that process like?
Yeah. I think, I mean, challenge wise, there's not a lot of material from the short that made it into the feature. Some of the end of it did. But I think the biggest challenge was to just not repeat ourselves because we liked something, or we liked the way that we did it in the short film. At least for me, that was probably just not to explore a new way or a different way to do something because we had already done it. That was probably the like mentally the biggest challenge, I would say. And then, you know, they're both winter movies, so there's a similar. We didn't get nearly the snow that we got in the short film.
Mm.
But we had that like this magical snowstorm, like for the finale scene in the short.
Yeah.
And we really didn't get much. I feel really good when people tell me the movie feels cold, because we did not have snow, and there's almost no snow falling in the movie.
Yeah.
So trying to think of some like other big challenges between the two. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the movie had all the challenges that any movie has. You know, we this is off topic, but I feel like we did. He and I, even though it was Julian's first feature, he had done some TV in between. It's Julian's first feature. It's not my first feature. And we could not have made the movie we made if we had done it earlier. I would say that. Like our I feel like our skill sets and kind of confidence, not changed, it just evolved once we got to dealing with God's country in a way that makes the movie stronger, I think, you know.
Yeah.
So that was different. I mean, we didn't have that confidence in Winter Light, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, it's like music. It's like our thesis film was like the first album, like it's raw and it works. The second one is like, you kind of refine it and it gets very good. And then the third one, which is God's Country, is the dangerous one in a sense, where you have the skill set, but you have to push on the mental side a bit differently and be more thorough, especially because it's longer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So just can't do the same. In a short, you can kind of do the same. It can kind of stay the same pace, and sometimes I actually think that's better for a short film.
Mm-hmm.
But a feature, it can't do that because it becomes monotonous, you know.
Right.
So maybe that was a big challenge for us. Was that, I would say.
Yeah, and it sounds like it came together at the right time then, you know, in both of your careers and collaboration to come back and make this as a feature.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, we just had so much confidence in the material as well, because, you know, Julian and the writer Shay, who's also he's not from our year at AFI, but he was a year after. They wrote and rewrote that script so many times. And then once they got it where they wanted, then they, you know, made it shorter and shorter and shorter, with the intent being to get rid of as much dialogue as possible. Mm-hmm. And because I think the script was like, by the time we shot, was maybe 70 pages, and but it had been well rehearsed, and not with actors, not with the actors from the movie, with like actor friends and stuff. Basically every time they took out dialogue, they would rehearse like in a room, not like a table read, but just standing around and I went to those sometimes. They would rehearse with these actors once more dialogue was taken out, to then see in that room and feel in that room if the intention of the scene was still coming across with the dialogue missing. And if it still did, then the dialogue stayed away. So they did that for, I don't know, a year and a half or something, and which is unusual. And it really refined the material and gave us a lot of that confidence as well, that the material, you had to trust it and that it was working.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great exercise to be seeing what dialogue is absolutely necessary and what's really pushing the story forward emotionally.
Yeah. And what came out of that, which I would say, like, there's a big problem. I mean, there's a big problem in movies in general, but especially movies of this budget and, like, you know, the sub $2 million, just the indie film. Like, there tends to be too many dialogue scenes of two people in a car or two people sitting at a table or whatever it may be. And it's never unique. It's almost never unique. And you generally don't have the actors that even carry that. If the material is good, it's very difficult. And then sometimes those scenes get stacked up together and it's just really not working, you know? And we don't have too many of those. There's the movie so much in the main character's perspective, and she's often alone. So we didn't have too many of those scenes, so that when we did, the problem with those scenes is you can't really, they've been shot every way.
Right.
Through the history of film. There's no new way to do it. And often if you try to do that, then it just feels like you're doing it because the material's not working, or it's like a bad style choice, you know, just too much. So that other process of making sure the dialogue was what it needed to be kind of allowed us to also not reinvent the wheel for the scenes that were that, because we knew the material, like everything around it, and that it was working, that you could just basically do a wide and two mediums or close-ups or whatever, and that would be fine.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of the energy. It's almost like wasted energy to try to make those things be something they can't be, you know, and you always try to do that because we want to make things interesting, but it's not always for the right reasons.
Right. So what's a scene that you're most proud of in this film? I'm assuming it's probably going to be something with little to no dialogue. Yeah.
No, by far the end scene I'm most proud of, for a couple reasons. One, we had no idea how to shoot that. Basically, like, even if we had all, you know, it's this end scene that takes place at night on the main character's property, which has been a character throughout the film. So the challenge became, you know, all the hunters, all the people she knows are like coming to her property and you don't know what's going to happen. And it really wasn't, in our opinions, it wouldn't work if you don't feel the landscape, because you're feeling it the whole movie. It's like the isolation of that. And then it became from there, like, well, how do we see the landscape? It's massive. It goes for miles in either direction. Even if I had all the money in the world, like, I'm not exactly sure how I would have done that on location anyways. And fortunately, you know, one of the suggestions that Julian made was, well, let's just do it all at Blue Hour. And it was a bit of a revelation, because it was an acknowledgement from him that he was willing to do what that meant. Which what it meant was, like, we shot at the main character's house for like 8 days or 9 days or something like that of the schedule. It basically meant every evening, stop what we were doing and go shoot 2 shots or whatever.
Wow.
Which is difficult for the actors. It's difficult for production. It's difficult for everybody. And it's like just an agreement that has to happen, that this is the way this is going to be done. And so that for me to be able to kind of pull that off, like, you know, we'd go out at lunch every day and pick, even though we had like shot listed the scene and stuff, we'd go, camera goes here. We'd go out with the finder, height, the extra set of tripod, everything would just go out there. So we would just run out and plop the camera on, basically. You know, that's kind of how we manage it. And there still are a few shots in there that aren't even at that location. They're just ones that I knew I could cheat by, like, lighting it however to make it fit. So that, and I guess the other part of why I'm proud of that scene is it's broken up by a year of shooting because the movie was shut down halfway through the pandemic. So,
Wow.
um, so it's pretty scene, like you watch that scene and you're like, this person's a year older. Now they're a year younger. Now they're a year older. Now they're a year younger. And the snow's different. Like everything is different. And
Yeah.
so, I'm very proud of, in fact, actually, I think the first is, I'm trying to think what the first shot, once she's at the house, it's her, I believe it's her coming down the hill and it's from the window and you watch her, the camera pulls back from the window and she's like coming down from the hill from burying her mother.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the very first shot we shot inside that house. And
Oh, wow.
that's a day for night shot. Like we knew we were, and actually it's a day for night shot and it has the headlights swing across the interior of the home. That's the first shot we did. So we always knew like this kind of blue hour or day for night was going to be the way that we had to do that. And I don't know, I'm proud of like how we saw that through and all the kind of pivots and energy it took to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
shooting a very like dense climactic scene only at blue hour.
Yeah,
That's pretty intense. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. Thank
And
you.
that's crazy. I would not have known, just switching back and forth between years.
Yeah, you can, and then again, I, a lot of my work in the movie is strong because of the director. I mean, that's always the case. Like he really enabled some of these things to happen because in a lot of other movies, it'd be like, okay, you got to do this in 2 days and like, or whatever. It just wouldn't, and the fact that there's not, we don't have, there's a couple scenes that didn't make it into the movie, but for the most part, like we shot for the edit and we knew most of what's in the movie are choices that we made, not choices of circumstance.
Hmm.
That circumstances that were either uncontrollable or forced upon us. For the most part, we were very thorough, and that's another reason that you can do that scene that way. Not everybody can be as decisive in terms of what shots we need and just how it needs to all come together.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing way to work.
Yeah. That's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
So, what's it like to be nominated for this film?
Um, I mean, I'm obviously I'm very excited that it's nominated. And you know, I just feel supported from some of the people that had put it up for nomination. Other people had told me that they voted for it. It's always very nice and heartwarming to hear those things. I'm surprised at the same time. I feel like the movie's it's a quiet movie. Like it's not in your face. Uh, it's not like an in your face visual movie.
Mhm.
But it's a very effective visual film, and you have to really pay attention to it. And it like, I think it actually gives you more. There's more. It's very subtle. There are more things that are given to you and you're rewarded with the more times you watch it also. But that's not an expectation you can have of an audience, that they're going to watch it multiple
Over
times.
and over.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I honestly, even with some of the best eyes in the world looking at it, I was surprised that it was chosen. So it gives me a lot of hope too, in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I do
absolutely.
think it's like I don't know. I do think the work is very strong and it's good, and it's like in a voice that I'm proud of, and I want to be able to work like that in a
Yeah.
way, So
Well,
um,
congratulations.
yeah.
Are there any, other nominated works that you'd like to give a shout out? Anything that really inspired you this year that you saw?
Um, I mean, I'm really excited that there are some other AFI classmates that are nominated in the TV category, Todd Van Hazel and Katie Goldschmidt. And then just some other peers, like Christian Springer's nominated, Carl Hersey. It's just kind of, I don't know, it feels like a new guard in a way. It's like it's happening, and that's, I don't know, like I look forward to being at the awards this year with other people that are like not at the what is considered the top of the mountain, being, you know, honored for the last 10 or 15 years of hard work that they've done, you know. So that's pretty exciting to me.
Yeah.